Dear listener, first of all, I sincerely wish you happiness, boundless love, and strong well-being. May each of your days be filled with light and joy, and may your heart always hold the warmth of loved ones. If you value heartfelt stories, if you care about the trials and triumphs of the soul, I ask you to subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me, and it will only take a few seconds of your time. Today, I want to share with you a story that turned my world upside down. A story of love, betrayal, and deep inner awakening. I want to start with the fateful moment when all my illusions crumbled like a house of cards. It was the moment I first realized that my long, seemingly unshakable marriage had become the stage for betrayal. My soul was torn in two. It was late in the evening. I was sitting in the dark living room, the only source of light being the flickering screen of my laptop. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. My eyes were glued to the video recorded by a hidden camera I had installed a few days earlier. With a quiet, almost imperceptible fear, I watched the scene I never wanted to see. On the screen, an indescribable drama unfolded. My husband, the man I had trusted with my entire life, was lying on our beloved bed. Next to him was an unfamiliar woman. Her movements were smooth and confident, as if she knew every curve of his body. Every detail, the soft flicker of the nightlight, the quiet rustle of the bed sheets, the faint scent of perfume filling the room, all merged into a symphony of forbidden passion that both shocked and repelled me. In that moment, when I realized that the love I had cherished for so long had turned into betrayal, something inside me exploded. I felt waves of fear and doubt washing over me. Every second of the video pierced my heart, leaving a wound that wouldn't heal. My mind was spinning with questions I could no longer answer. How could this betrayal have happened? Why hadn't I noticed our life falling apart? Tears streamed down my cheeks, and my hands clenched into fists involuntarily. Memories of the years we had spent together, of our shared plans, of every little thing that had seemed eternal, swirled in my head. And then, in an instant, all those memories collapsed into a whirlpool of pain, leaving only emptiness and cold. "How could you?" I whispered, unable to hold back the voice filled with pain and indignation. That phrase seemed to echo through the empty room, shattering the silence into fragments. But in that moment, there was no sound, no answer. Only the cruel truth captured on tape. Memories flashed before my eyes like a film reel. Our first dates, heartfelt conversations, nights filled with laughter and hope. All of it suddenly turned into a painful question. When had everything started to change? Had I been blind, not noticing the signs? Or had there always been a hidden anxiety in my heart that I stubbornly ignored? And now, standing before that screen, I felt as if I were at a crossroads, between the past, when everything had seemed perfect, and the present, filled with betrayal. My thoughts raced like birds in a cage, and I felt darkness thickening inside me from the internal struggle. I remembered that long autumn when the first hints of change began to appear. My husband started coming home late from work more often, and his gaze, when our eyes met, was full of hidden secrets. I tried to find explanations. Maybe it was just stress and fatigue. But now, watching that video, I understood. Behind the mask of normalcy lay a terrible reality. I decided I could no longer live in ignorance. A plan began to form in my mind to uncover the whole truth, to find answers to all the tormenting questions. This thought awakened something ancient and powerful within me, a desire to regain control of my life, to recognize my strength and independence. But along with it came fear of losing everything I held dear, fear of the unknown and the pain I might experience again. At the same moment I was watching the video, I heard a quiet, almost imperceptible sound behind me, the voice of my daughter echoing in the hallway. The little girl, naive and innocent, seemed to remind me that there was still room for pure feelings, for genuine love in this world. But how could that love exist in a house where betrayal had already crept into every corner? My head filled with memories of how we had laughed together just recently, how my daughter had run around the house after me, reminding me that life goes on no matter what. But now everything seemed destroyed, as if someone had erased all the bright colors, leaving only grayness and pain. It was like a lightning strike, leaving not only destruction, but also indelible scars. I closed the laptop, as if trying to push away the horrifying images, but my memory had already etched them into my soul. My hands were trembling, and my breathing became erratic. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a chill of fear creeping into my bones. My heart ached, and I realized I would never be able to look at the world the same way again. What now? I asked myself, trying to find strength deep within my soul. There was no answer, only the echo of my own voice, lost in the labyrinth of pain and doubt. At that very moment, as I sank into my dark thoughts, another thought arose in my mind, that despite all the pain, life continued to move forward. Perhaps now, in the deepest moment of betrayal, I could find the strength for a new beginning. But how, when the past had poisoned every cell of my being? These thoughts were replaced by images, like flashes of lightning, and I suddenly remembered how, not long ago, on a quiet autumn street, my husband and I had walked in the rain, laughing and holding hands. Back then, I had believed that nothing could destroy our love. Now, it all seemed like an illusion, a fairy tale I had once wanted to believe. Memories of my daughter's childhood games, her innocent laughter, awakened in me a desire to protect her from all the dark forces that had invaded our home. I realized I had to find the strength to fight not only for myself, but also for that little life that needed my attention and love. The world around me seemed both unreal and painfully concrete. Every gust of wind outside the window, every sound, it all resonated in the depths of my shattered heart. I heard not only sounds, but also the whisper of my own conscience, trying to say, "You are strong, you can overcome this pain." But the words of encouragement seemed so distant, almost impossible to hear over the noise of the internal storm. Now, sitting in the dim light of our living room, I felt a desire to understand why this had happened. Could I have changed something? Could the intuition I had ignored for so long have warned me? But looking back, I realized that many questions would remain unanswered forever. I stood up, and a sense of determination echoed in my head. I would not let this pain destroy me. Though anger and sorrow still boiled inside me, I knew I had to find the strength to fight, to protect the life I loved. Remembering the words my mother once said, "Life is not the absence of pain, but the ability to live with it." I tried to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. But just as I began to feel the darkness receding, the phone rang. My daughter's voice, full of anxiety and childish innocence, broke the silence. "Mom! Dad!" she began, but her words got stuck in her throat, filled with fear and doubt. I heard a faint tremor in her voice, echoing the feelings I myself was experiencing. My daughter, still unaware of the complexities of adult life, had suddenly become the voice awakening in me the realization that every second mattered and every moment could be decisive. At that moment, I realized my world would never be the same again. On one hand, betrayal had destroyed all the stability I had built over the years, but on the other, perhaps within this chaos lay the possibility of a new beginning. A chance to understand who I truly was and to find the strength to move forward, no matter what. I dialed my husband's number, my voice trembling as I tried to speak clearly, though the words stuck in my throat. "What was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though everything inside me was breaking from the pain. It's not what you think," he said, his voice quiet and confused, as if he too was trying to find an explanation for his actions. But his words couldn't hide the truth I had already seen with my own eyes. Our conversation was filled with accusations and excuses, tears and shouts, but deep down, I already knew that everything we had experienced together had lost its meaning. Those words were the final straw, breaking the line. We both understood that further communication was doomed to endless arguments and wounds that would never heal. That night became a turning point in my life. I sat in the darkness, feeling the bitterness of betrayal mixed with an unbearable sense of loss. Inside me, an endless drama unfolded, where every emotion, from rage to tenderness, fought for the right to be heard. I felt a strength awakening within me, one I had never known before. With each new emotion, with each new memory, I understood more and more. Life doesn't end with betrayal. It only changes, demanding new answers and new beginnings. But the price we had to pay for this transition was too high. The pain left in my heart could haunt me forever. And so, I stood at a crossroads, between the past, which burned so brightly with memories, and the future, which promised new trials and perhaps new hope. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. Ahead of me lay moments of self-discovery, difficult conversations, and overwhelming emotions. But deep within my soul, a spark had begun to ignite, a hope that by going through this pain, I could find the strength to become stronger. With these thoughts, I lay down on the bed, trying to forget all the suffering, even for a moment. But sleep didn't come. Only thoughts, like waves, crashing one after another, making my heart beat faster. It felt as if even time had stopped, and the whole world had shrunk to the size of this one room, filled with the echoes of betrayal and pain. I understood that ahead of me lay answers to questions I had been afraid to ask myself. answers that could shatter my illusions and open wounds that had long been hidden under a mask of calm. But it was in this night, in this darkened world, that I took the first step, a step toward understanding who I truly was and why I had allowed this betrayal to become part of my life. My thoughts returned to my daughter's voice, to her quiet but insistent reminder that there was still room for genuine feelings, for real love in our home. Perhaps that love, the one that had been lost, could rise again from the ashes of shattered hopes. Or would I remain a prisoner of my pain forever? That night marked the beginning of my inner journey, a path full of doubt, bitterness, but also unquenchable hope for something better. I knew there would be days when the pain would feel unbearable, when every sound, every shadow would remind me of that fateful moment. But now, in this fragile moment of awakening, I made a decision. I would never stay silent again. I would never allow myself to live in illusions. Before I could find the answers, there was a knock at the door. The unexpected sound pulled me out of the labyrinth of thoughts and made my heart race. Who could be coming at this hour when the house was shrouded in darkness and silence? Doubt, fear, and curiosity mingled in my soul, as if fate itself had decided to add another stroke to this grim picture. I slowly approached the door, feeling every movement echo in my head. When I opened it, I saw a figure I hadn't expected. After that mysterious knock, I still stood there, unable to believe what was happening. Fragments of thoughts and the sounds of the recent phone conversation flashed through my mind. But the real shock came when my daughter appeared at the door, as if carrying the cold truth I had been so afraid to hear. The girl, barely 8 years old, looked at me with eyes full of anxiety and confusion. Her small voice trembled as she said, "Mom? Dad?" That woman was here again today. I know you've been waiting for this moment, but I'm so scared. My heart stopped. Those simple, innocent words awakened a storm of memories. I remembered how, not long ago, on an ordinary evening, as we sat at dinner, she had quietly spoken about seeing an adult voice at the door of their bedroom when Dad had run in with a stranger. She told me it wasn't the first time she had seen that woman knocking, and how Dad, as if knowing something forbidden was behind it, had quietly opened the door. Those words sounded like a verdict, echoing in my soul. I tried to steady the trembling in my voice and remain firm, because in front of me was not only my pain, but also the fear for my daughter's future. "Sit down, sweetheart," I whispered, inviting her to sit beside me. We both, as if sharing an unbearable sense of loss, sat down on the old couch, where time seemed to have frozen over the long years of family comfort. I tried to speak calmly, but every word was soaked in tears. "Tell me everything," I said, though inside, my confidence and determination were mixed with unbearable pain. My daughter looked at me intently, as if ready to convey the whole truth, despite her young soul. Her story began with a quiet whisper, almost inaudible, but with each word, it grew louder and more alarming. She told me how one evening, when Dad had come home earlier than usual, she had heard a conversation that sounded strange and unfamiliar. She had noticed how Dad, usually confident and calm, had secretly been embarrassed, closing the door to his room, and how, after that, with a quiet knock, the unfamiliar woman had entered. Her story was filled with so many details that my heart clenched with fear again. The strange scent of perfume, the rustle of silk, the quiet, almost imperceptible laughter that immediately reminded me of how I had long since lost the understanding of what true love and loyalty were. I felt the memories returning with renewed force. Memories of days when I had heard Dad laughing with someone but couldn't explain why. How his gaze had avoided mine. How the small details of family life had suddenly become incomprehensible and unsettling. All of it gathered into a whirlwind that left me breathless. "My dear," I whispered, trying to comfort her, though I myself felt the world collapsing. "Thank you for telling me this. I promise we'll find out the truth. We'll find a way to protect our family and preserve what's left of our love." At that moment, something awakened in my soul. Something that could be called determination. A determination not to let the pain destroy me completely, but to allow justice to prevail, even if it meant facing what I had been so afraid of. But fear, as always, lingered in the shadows. Fear for my daughter's future. Fear of the relentless reality that had so suddenly invaded our lives. We spent a few minutes in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts, before I finally stood up to check the house. First, I quietly walked through the hallways, trying to gather my thoughts. Then, I returned to the room where we had been sitting and decided it was time to figure things out. I needed to find confirmation that my daughter's stories weren't just a child's fantasy, but a cruel reality that threatened our entire family life. Fragments of conversations, accidentally overheard snippets, and those small details I had previously ignored flashed through my memory. Every little thing now took on a new, painful meaning. But I understood that if I didn't take action now, the pain and betrayal could destroy everything that remained in our home. I remembered how, a few weeks ago, noticing strange changes in my husband's behavior, his constant delays at work, unnatural wariness, evasive answers, I had already begun to doubt. But why hadn't I wanted to believe the worst? Perhaps because I had loved him unconditionally, trusted his words too much, believed that any problem could be solved if we just tried. Now, listening to my daughter's voice, I realized it had all been an illusion, a deception created to protect my heart from unbearable pain. With this thought, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would conduct a real investigative experiment. I would install hidden cameras in the places where arguments and secret meetings had taken place. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes, just as I had seen that mysterious video. If my husband had truly betrayed me, if there was another love in his eyes and actions, I needed to know for sure, even if the truth would hurt. Night fell on our house again, but now it was filled not only with darkness, but also with determination. While my daughter slept soundly in her bed, I sat in silence, thinking about how much more there was to learn and endure. Every second felt endless, every moment a step into the unknown. I understood that the road ahead would be strewn with sharp thorns of doubt, accusations, and tears. But I could no longer go back to the illusion of our family idyll. A new feeling had awakened in my heart, a feeling of fighting for the truth. for our family, for the love that had once bound us together. And though fear and pain still pierced me, I knew the truth must prevail and no secrets would remain hidden. By dawn, I was ready for a new day, a new stage in this agonizing trial. In my head, I heard the words my mother had once said, "You are strong, and you will get through this." And despite all the suffering, I believed that this path, no matter how thorny, would lead me to freedom from deception and to a new life where I could rediscover myself. But deep down, I wondered, how much longer could I hide the truth from myself? How long would my inner demons whisper that love was just an illusion and betrayal an inevitable part of life? This thought was accompanied by echoes of old memories when my husband and I had dreamed of the future together, made plans, and believed our happiness was endless. And so, in that morning hour, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, I decided, no more illusions, no more excuses and silence. Today, I would demand the truth, for myself and for my daughter. And if that truth turned out to be bitter, I would accept it, because only then could I find the strength to move forward. Before taking new action, I hugged my sleeping daughter, whispering softly, "We'll get through this together, my dear. I promise I'll never let anyone hurt you again." These words, filled with tenderness and determination, became a kind of vow to protect what truly mattered to me. I knew there would be difficult days ahead, filled with doubt, anger, and perhaps irreparable losses, but I was ready to fight for our family, for the truth, so that every little thing, every whisper of the night, would no longer bring only pain, but also hope for a brighter future. With this realization, I returned to my room, where a plan of action was already forming. I decided that in the coming days, I would talk to my husband, find out if he could explain the oddities I had ignored for so long, and try to find the strength to forgive, if that was even possible. But if the truth turned out to be bitter, I could no longer live in the shadow of deception. In my mind, an endless dramatic play unfolded, where every minute, every word, and every glance took on new meaning. Trust, once the foundation of our marriage, was now shattered like old glass, leaving unhealed wounds on my soul. But I understood. Wounds could heal if I allowed myself to truly feel the pain and let go of the past. That morning, I sat at the table and wrote down all the thoughts and feelings that had accumulated over the long weeks of doubt. I wrote about every rustle, every shadow that flickered in the corners of my memory, about every tear that had stained my pillow at night. These entries became more than just pages in a diary. They became a confessional temple, where every line reminded me that I was still alive, that I could still feel and love despite all the pain. In the silence of the new day, I began to plan my next steps. I knew that ahead of me lay an endless number of questions and trials, but I could no longer turn back. The truth, no matter how bitter, had to be exposed, and I was ready to face it with an open heart. And so, standing by the window, I watched as the city woke up, as life stirred beyond the walls of my home. Those first rays of sunlight seemed like a symbol of a new beginning, though tinged with the shadows of the past. Something inside me was changing. Not only determination, but also hope that, having gone through this fire of betrayal, I could find new strength and perhaps learn to love myself again. I took a deep breath of the fresh morning air, and a faint smile appeared on my lips, one that carried a sense of confidence. This pain would not last forever. Today, I would take the first step toward freeing myself from the chains of deception, and though the road would be long and thorny, I knew I would find the strength to move forward, no matter the trials, because my daughter, my love, and my own life were worth fighting for the truth. The morning brought cold light, but darkness still reigned in my heart, a darkness that even the first rays of dawn couldn't dispel. The determination that had taken root the night before compelled me to get up and face my fate. I knew, today, I could no longer live in the shadow of lies and illusions. I walked into the spacious living room where my husband sat at the table, staring at the floor. The room smelled of coffee, and the soft rustle of morning news played in the background. But to me, everything felt foreign. The world around me was crumbling along with our dreams. I felt a shiver run through my body, but every movement was driven by resolve. "We need to talk," I said, my voice quiet but firm. He looked up, and in his eyes I saw fear and confusion, as if he knew he would soon have to answer for everything. I sat down across from him, and for a moment, a heavy silence hung between us. So thick it felt as if time itself had stopped. Images flashed through my mind, the video exposing his infidelity, my daughter's voice revealing the painful truth, all the little things I had ignored for so long. "I know what's going on," I whispered, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "I've seen it all. On the camera, heard our daughter's story." His face paled, and his eyes flickered with a mix of fear and guilt. He looked away, as if afraid to meet my sincerity. You don't understand," he began. But I cut him off, feeling a storm brewing inside me. "Explain it to me then. Why? Why did you seek comfort in someone else's arms?" I asked, my voice growing stronger, filled with pain and bitterness. Every word, spoken with such force, seemed to shatter the space between us. His hands clenched, and his gaze darted around the room, as if searching for salvation in the cold light of the lamp. He tried to find the words, but the silence was louder than any excuse. I felt alone," he finally said, his voice trembling. "You were so busy. I didn't want to hurt you." His words sounded hollow, like an echo of a love long gone. I felt all the memories, our long conversations, shared plans, laughter and tears, merge into one stream, and now it was all destroyed. "Alone?" I repeated bitterly, unable to hold back the surge of emotions. "You chose to seek comfort elsewhere, instead of coming to me, talking to me, working through what was troubling us, instead of being honest." His eyes, filled with tears and regret, met mine. In that gaze, I saw fear, remorse, and a spark of the man I had once loved. But that spark wasn't enough to heal the wounds inflicted by betrayal. I tried. "I thought if I told you the truth, you wouldn't be able to handle it," he muttered, as if afraid to say it out loud. I felt everything inside me churn with anger and pain, but also with longing for the lost trust and warmth we had once shared. "Your excuses are just an attempt to avoid responsibility," I said, my voice firming. "Our home, our family, Our daughter deserves the truth. You made a choice, and now I need to know. Will you be honest? Or is this just another lie? The room was tense, as if reality itself had paused, waiting for an answer. He sighed heavily, lowering his head, and I heard tears flooding his voice. I know I've caused you pain, he said, almost in a whisper. I sought comfort where I thought I could find it, and now I realize I've lost what was most precious. But I don't know how to fix this. His words were like raindrops, softly tapping against the shattered glass of our hopes. I felt my heart clench with pain, and in that moment, everything inside me was a mix of resentment, love, disappointment, and a faint hope that something could still be salvaged. Fix it, I repeated, disbelief in my voice. Our years together, our memories, do you think they can be fixed? You betrayed me, betrayed our daughter. How can we rebuild the trust we've lost? He couldn't answer. In the silence, broken only by my rapid breathing, I remembered my daughter's voice. Her quiet but sincere story that now sounded like a verdict. I remembered all the moments when small details had seemed unimportant, only to later take on a new, devastating meaning. I want to understand, I said softly, almost whispering. How did we get to this point? Maybe we both made mistakes. Maybe it was because we stopped listening to each other. But know this. I don't forgive betrayal, even if it was born out of loneliness. He slowly raised his eyes, and in them, I saw a spark of despair. I'm willing to do anything to regain even a part of what we've lost, he said, his voice trembling. If you give me a chance, if we try to figure out where we went wrong. His words were both a challenge and a plea for forgiveness. I felt two forces battling within me, one that screamed for retribution for the betrayal, and another that still clung to fragments of the love we once shared. But the pain was too fresh, and I couldn't immediately accept his offer. I don't know if I can forgive, I admitted, struggling to hold back tears. But our daughter, our life, they demand truth and resolution. Today, this conversation isn't just an argument. It's the moment when we have to choose how to move forward. For a few moments, time stretched into infinity, and in that silence, I felt every second cutting into my heart. Outside, the wind howled, foreshadowing a storm, and it seemed as if nature itself was responding to our inner turmoil. If you really want to fix this, I said, almost whispering, start with honesty. Tell me the whole truth, even if it's painful. I want to understand why you went where you never dreamed of going, why you sought comfort in someone else's arms, and I want to know if there's still a spark in us that can reignite the flame, or if everything is already lost. His face darkened, and he took a deep breath. His gaze grew weaker, as if facing an inevitable judgment. He could no longer find excuses for his actions. I was broken, he finally admitted, his voice quiet but filled with agonizing regret. I felt invisible in our marriage, like I no longer existed to you. I tried to find comfort, but instead of turning to you, I chose a path that destroyed everything. I'm afraid I can't get back what we had. Those words tore me apart. I understood that perhaps he had lacked the words to express the pain he had felt, but for me, betrayal was an insurmountable chasm. Our souls seemed to stand at a crossroads, and only time could answer whether healing was possible after such a wound. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts. When I opened them again, determination burned in my gaze. "Right now, I don't know if we can find our way back," I said, my voice steady despite my broken heart. "But I owe it to our daughter and to myself to preserve the truth. If you're willing to start with a clean slate, with complete honesty, then maybe we can regain some of the lost trust. But I warn you, this path will be long and painful, and if you take one more step toward lies, I won't forgive you." Tears filled his eyes, and in that moment, I realized that even in betrayal, there was room for regret and remorse. But hope, so fragile and fleeting, couldn't heal the wounds with words alone. We sat across from each other in silence, filled with bitterness and vague promises of the future. Outside, a storm broke, and the sound of falling rain mixed with our unresolved questions, creating a symphony of pain and hope. In that moment, I realized the truth, like pain, wounds, but it can also be the first step toward healing. Today, we had faced our fate head-on, and though our journey was still long, I was ready to move forward, for myself, for my daughter, for the fragments of love that had once united us. I stood up, carefully approaching the window, and watched the raindrops splashing against the glass. In the fragile dance of the droplets, I saw a reflection of my tears and a glimmer of hope that, despite all the pain, a spark of true understanding and forgiveness could still ignite in our lives. "Today, our journey begins," I whispered, turning to my husband, "a journey where truth will reign, and our family must find a new beginning. We must embrace the pain to learn how to live again." His voice, quiet and broken, responded with a faint sigh. We both knew ahead of us lay difficult trials, but in that moment, something new had been born between us. A chance to rethink life, to transform pain into a lesson, and perhaps to find a path to reconciliation with ourselves. Many months had passed since the voice of betrayal first echoed in our home, since every crack in our relationship became an unbearable wound. I walked through life as if through a minefield. Every step was an effort, but each new dawn brought a quiet hope for change. My husband and I tried to find common ground, to put an end to the unresolved issues in our relationship. But the truth turned out to be far more complicated than just words and promises. On one of those long, cold nights, as rain tapped against the windows, reminding me of past storms, I sat at the table where our old letters, diary entries, and memories of happier times lay. These documents were like frozen pieces of the past, reminders that we had once loved each other sincerely, but betrayal had left its indelible stains on them. That evening, after many long conversations, uncontrollable tears, and painful confessions, my husband and I met for one final decisive conversation. He came to me, his hands trembling, his eyes filled with silent sorrow. We both knew it was time to make a difficult but necessary choice. "I've been searching within myself for the strength to understand," he said quietly, "that our love has changed. I realize I can't bring back the past, and perhaps we've both lost the spark that once united us." My heart ached, but at the same time, I felt a strange relief. The pain of betrayal had weighed on me for so long, and now, hearing his words, I realized it was time to let go of the illusion that we could return to what we once had. We had both made our choices, and our paths had diverged forever. I quietly replied, looking into his eyes. I've always hoped for a miracle, that love could heal the wounds, but sometimes the miracle is too costly. Today, we must let go of the past and move forward on separate paths. My voice trembled, but it carried a resolve I had fought for all these months. At that moment, something I had long searched for unfolded within me, a calm after the storm. I realized I could no longer live as a prisoner of pain and deception. By letting go of the idea of restoring what was lost, I found the strength to release what had bound us, even if it meant parting with the person to whom I had once given my entire soul. Our farewell embrace was filled with quiet sadness and gratitude for all the years we had spent together. We both understood. This wasn't the end of our lives, but the beginning of a new path. He was leaving to start over, and I was taking a step toward myself, toward who I could become without the pain of the past. I was left alone in the empty room, where the echo of his footsteps slowly faded, leaving behind emptiness, but also space for a new life. Night turned to dawn, and the first rays of sunlight entered my home, as if heralding renewal. I opened the window, breathing in the fresh morning air, and felt the heavy burden of pain gradually lifting. Each day became a small victory, a battle against my own fears, against the inner demons that had whispered for so long that I couldn't live without him. But with each step, I felt more and more that I was finding my strength, my individuality, my reflection in the mirror, free from others' expectations and grievances. I began writing down my thoughts in a diary, where every word became a brick in the foundation of a new me. In my entries, there was both pain and liberation, both a cry of the soul and a quiet voice of hope. I met people who helped me believe in myself, who supported me when it felt like the world had lost its color. Slowly but surely, I learned to forgive not only him, but also myself, for hiding in the shadows for so long, unwilling to face the truth. Time passed, and I began to see my life through different eyes. I found a balance between what had been and what was yet to come. I learned to cherish moments of solitude, for it was in them that new dreams and plans were born. Now I know. Even after the deepest pain, you can find light if you allow yourself to believe in life again. At the end of my journey, I realized that saying goodbye wasn't a defeat, but a sign of strength. Our home, filled with memories, was left behind as a monument to a bygone era, and ahead lay a new world, full of possibilities, change, and perhaps true self-love. As I greeted the dawn of a new day, I felt that every breath gave me a chance to start over, with a clean heart and a clear soul. I thanked fate for allowing me, through the pain of betrayal, to find my true strength and learn to love not only others, but also myself. Now, my life is an endless journey, where every step is filled with meaning, where every goodbye opens the door to a new beginning. And so, with the final chord of the past drama, I take my last step. I let go of the past and look to the future with an open heart, ready to accept whatever it brings. Because despite all the trials, I know one thing. I am alive, I am strong, and ahead of me lies a life full of light, warmth, and perhaps a new pure love.